It means if you want to squat good, you need to squat. You need to squat a lot. All right, that's a principle. It's a principle. So I want to spend time down in these end ranges, and I want to dive over to this side, see what this ankle, going almost like a circle, go inside, go outside, go up off, have your heel come up off the ground, rock back, see if you lose your balance. Can you keep your toes down while you get all the way back? Can we be over here? Let's see what the other side looks like. Can I be on my heel? Can I be on my pinky toe? Can I be over here up on the toes? Can I do a calf raise? Can I come back down? Can I be in full expression? And then I was just resting into my joints down here, by the way. It wasn't costing me a lot of energy. But now this cost me some energy. Being here, can I keep tripod while I'm in these different squat patterns? I'm still in squat, but I'm just in a different expression. I'm in a different alignment. I'm in a different position. So when we're training for sport, what position do you need to be in? What position is ideal for you to be training a lot in and be strong and have control and have power in that? Have an expression of explosion in those. And then once I master all of this, being ninja, and can I do it from a narrow stance? And then am I training, the single leg? And can I train patterns there? Can I go up a little bit higher? Can I breathe? Can I now add a kettlebell? Can I be down here? This is a 45-pounder, but this is a lot different exercise. Being in these positions, come up an inch, here, 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 here. I want to explore all of it. Man, that's a workout. I'm a little bit of sweat, not much. But now I'm training for position. I'm training the squat pattern. And I think it's so important to be training patterns and not parts. So I want to end with that today.